Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
Wait, so you're telling me that your team of 5 people,
right,
in this economic development nonprofit puts together a music festival and like an innovation conference that runs for double your operating budget.
And there's thousands of people involved at one level or another, and thousands more that lie about having attended. Hey everybody, it's Scott. It is Wednesday. It is the Pitchwerks podcast. Yes, I realize it's the internet and you're allowed to download and listen whenever you want. I just like to give you that sort of chronological North Star. I'm old school like that. So welcome back aboard. I have a special treat for you. My good friend Kenny Chen is in from Ascender. Before we get to the bit where I ask questions and he answers them, let me remind you that iTunes is still waiting for your feedback and it's feeling lonely. iTunes called me and they said that they want your review on the show. So get in there, tell them, just equate your level of satisfaction to some sort of linear value of stars, and then tell us why you chose those stars. The host has a cool voice, but he has annoying questions. The voice isn't that great, but the questions are fantastic. You want to see Buzzy pose for, somewhat suggestive photography. I don't care what it is. What I want to know is, how does this show impact you? And what we're really driving at is, how would somebody know that this is a show that they should be listening to? Do that for me, and I'll be your friend forever. Hit me up on the social channels, Pitchwerks, Pitchwerks, or just jump to the website, pitchwerks.com. You'll find the Pitchcraft blog there, all of our past episodes, everything you'd be looking for. So without any further ado, we're going to talk to Mr. Kenny Chen from Ascender. Don't forget Thrival Festival coming up at the end of September, the 27th through the 30th. All right, let's extend the Epicast Studio Pitchwerks podcast. Welcome to Kenny Chen from Ascender. Kenny, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm especially glad to be here, and I've been looking forward to this conversation now that I've listened to all 44 episodes so far.
Not everybody that listens to this show will know you the way the folks around here know you. But Kenny is ubiquitous here in the Pittsburgh startup scene. And I guess the first question that I should probably ask is, how did you get to where you're at? So how do you get to the point where you're kind of in every one of these rooms?
I was pretty much in my first job out of college, and got sent to Hong Kong to work on behalf of an education nonprofit. The whole idea, I was working with Professor Philip Zimbardo, who did the Stanford Prison Experiment back in the 1970s, and I swear this will all make sense as it goes along.
I'm already fascinated.
But, sure.
Hong Kong had me, and then you throw in the gentleman behind the Stanford Prison Experiment, and it's like there's no way that this goes bad after this.
All right, but let's just say I spent the first 23 or so years of my life as an introvert without a whole lot of friends and casting self-doubt at every turn and feeling awfully awkward in situations where networking or public speaking or those kinds of things were a thing.
Huh.
And from around high school or so, I was intentionally starting to throw myself into uncomfortable situations as a means to try to change some of that.
Right.
And it definitely took a good long time of repeated rejection therapy and just utter embarrassment in front of the entirety of my peers. But
where was this now? You were in California, was it? I can't remember where you told me you went to high school.
I grew up in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And went to school, went to college at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
So graduating there, started working for Dr. Zimbardo on the nonprofit called the Heroic Imagination Project. So taking the past 100 years of psychology and sociology research and trying to turn that into actionable lessons that could be deployed anywhere from middle school student councils to multinational corporations for change management. Over time, as the organization was built, absolutely a startup, by the way. And like any startup, mission-driven or otherwise, really honing in on what the product looked like and what the appropriate audiences and customers or so would look like. So yeah, it's still continuing. And
so how does that now weave into, you said, I had a difficult time maybe fitting in and being social. I think this is a huge goal of this show, is for people to understand that no one's really comfortable being the tap dancing monkey in the top hat, right? Like, we know that's how you feel when you go in there. You're like, well, this is what I'm working on, and I'm going to ask you for money, right? Like, it wasn't any different in high school when it was about, hey, do you want to come play video games? It wasn't any different, in college when it was, hey, would you like to go out for drinks, right? It's always something where you feel like you're putting on an act, and you say you were this person who was kind of tightly introverted, and now you're not. I was
the mathlete, the chess player, the Science Bowl contestant, and the one who did not have a group to eat lunch with. Back to your original question, the turning point kind of came for me when the Heroic Imagination Project, after I'd been working there for about a year, they decided to send me off to Hong Kong to be kind of like a one-man traveling Asia office. And they had some clients in China, in Hong Kong, some potential folks in Vietnam and the Philippines that were all interested in behavior change and culture and what our programs had to offer in all of these different kinds of contexts.
But how old are you at this point?
I was, I think, 22 or 23. It was definitely an adventure. I went there without knowing anyone. Probably the first 2 months that I was there. In Hong Kong, the real estate is far more expensive than even San Francisco or New York. I was spending like $1,500 a month for a 140 square foot windowless apartment.
Is that an apartment, really?
It's
a room.
It was a larger apartment that was illegally subdivided into 3 smaller ones.
Oh, there you go.
And so I was living there. I had no sense of day or night. Hadn't made friends yet, or the ones that I would run into outside were all investment bankers, and I didn't have a whole lot to talk to them about.
Right.
And so within the midst of this turmoil that I was feeling coming from a place where I at least had a base of friends, family, network, etc., I could call someone up any day and grab dinner or lunch or something, to something where none of that existed.
Yeah.
Eventually, I got to this point where the idea was to at least get myself out every night.
Yeah.
Like, do not spend more than 18 hours indoors at any point, and go to as many different meetups or networking events or dance parties. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just get
to
yourself
get out there. Yeah.
Talk to people, understand more about the city. And as soon as I pushed myself to do some of that stuff, I very quickly found the groups and niches where I did belong, and found fascinating some underground sub-communities of people who were doing really cool things, whether it was social enterprise or the Hong Kong contingent of Burning Man loyal lights, if that's a word. And it became amazing. I got this kind of thirst for meeting and engaging with new people outside of my existing comfort zone and sphere of understanding.
Now, how would you rate your use of the language when you got there versus when you left? This is not an easy language, right?
So I had the benefit of being able to speak and understand Mandarin, which is still significantly different from Cantonese.
Right.
Like 95% different. It's pretty much indistinguishable. But between Mandarin and English, I was able to converse with most people.
But Mandarin is not what they're speaking in Nevada. I checked.
No.
Not usually. I'm just saying. I mean, maybe it's changed since the last time I was there. But so that's what I'm saying. Like, so part of it, Part of the reason that people sometimes are reluctant to go out and have these adventures is the fact that they're afraid that they're not going to understand emergency signs. They're not going to understand when someone tells them that they're being swindled or robbed, or they're not going to understand when the swindle or rob is kind of plain as the nose on your face, because you understand at this like grade school level of the language, and you survived it.
Yeah.
And you survived just fine. You're sitting in my studio.
That's right. And I think one of the things that I learned was that can actually be a lot of advantages to being an outsider, especially in places that have something to prove,
right,
or something that people are trying to do. So for the entirety of my year there, I was a newcomer, I was an outsider, I was an American within, within this new context. But for me to be able to get legitimately excited about social enterprise or these emerging circles and areas of interest that people were heavily investing themselves in, that opened a lot of doors, especially when I was able to then take the experiences and insights that I was bringing along and apply them in a way that people were willing to listen to.
Right.
Or, I was able to position myself or to prove myself as a trustworthy individual.
Right.
Despite being an outsider committed to the goals of the people that I was working with. I tell a lot of people, or when I first got to Pittsburgh, I told a lot of people how refreshing it was to be in the city, especially one that's practically a polar opposite to where I had just come from in Hong Kong. And so the things that were very difficult for me in Hong Kong, finding groups of either like-minded or complementarily minded people.
Nice job on coining that word, by the way. That was really smooth.
Thank you.
You didn't miss a beat. The rhythm and the cadence were perfect.
My facial expressions.
Oh, you totally pulled it off.
Yeah,
absolutely. High fives all around.
But in Pittsburgh, it's like you can't ride on a bus from point A to point B without finding somebody who you can really connect authentically.
Kevin Bacon's got nothing on us, too.
1.5 degrees of, Pittsburghers.
Somebody wears a T-shirt for an event that you went to 3 years ago, and you're like, you were there? I thought I was one of the only 9 people that went to that weird event, and now you've got a friend for life on the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. So, coming here and just finding a city that is already on a kind of growth trajectory, and if not currently in the midst of an inflection point, as say Grant Oliphant and other influencers around the area, if Pittsburgh isn't already in the inflection point, then we're really near it for a phase where global influence and the level of activity and other things are just growing at an incredible rate.
I'm going to blow your mind. I saw Vivek from Click It earlier today.
Yeah.
And he told me that there's an article on PitchBook that says that InnovationWorks has written more seed-type deals than any other incubator accelerator program in the country. And it had them ranked so you could see like SV Angels in there and 500 Startups is in there and Y Combinator's in there in the top 5, right? But in terms of like total volume, total flow of things going on, they were right at the top.
Interesting.
And it's weird. Yeah, you and I are both having the same reaction where it's like, I wouldn't have guessed that, and that's my horse, right? That's like, I have a vested interest in wanting that to happen. I should have noticed when it did happen. And Vivek pulls up, he shows me his phone, and he goes, did you know this? Like, I'm not sure I even believe it.
That's exactly where Pittsburgh's at right now. There's a really exciting expansion of people jumping right into the Alpha Lab gear, the various university programs, joining us at Ascender. And
there's quality talent at the top of these organizations.
Definitely.
There really, really is. It's impressive to see the presentations from the people that lead those outfits. So, and that's actually in a very tidy way brings us to Ascender. a lot of people think they don't know what a sender is. And then, you kind of explain that, the larger topic to them. Like, okay, well, the people who throw the Thrival Festival that you can't wait to get into every year. Oh, that's Thrill Mill.
Right.
And okay, so it's all the same people. Now, I don't need to tell you, person who advises startups every day, day in, day out, that hiccup in terms of the brand continuity, is probably not ideal. But I know you guys did it on purpose. Take me down how that decision got made.
Sure. And, when you say that, people don't necessarily understand what a sender is, in many ways, for us, also viewing ourselves as a startup, we're constantly soul searching and trying to find exactly what we are or what we need to be as well.
Right.
And I think this really goes back to the initial impetus behind Thrill Mill 5 years ago. So back in 2012, the whole organization was built more as a response to a recognition in just gaps for the Pittsburgh entrepreneurial or innovation ecosystem.
Right.
Back then, even Alpha Lab and Alpha Lab Gear were still in initial stages. And for people that had a good idea, but perhaps were inexperienced or just needed some more time and some more mentorship and other things, who perhaps weren't ready to jump into a 3 to 6 month fast-paced accelerator program like Alpha Lab and Alpha Lab Gear, they didn't have a home. They didn't have a place where they could test things out and make some mistakes, and perhaps reforge themselves even in the midst of a failure for one enterprise, but feel good enough about the experience that they might jump into their second or third or fourth, et cetera, kind of venture. So Thrill Mill was conceived as a startup incubator. And the difference between incubators and accelerators mainly being the amount of time that a relationship is maintained, incubators going for longer, a smaller amount of seed or pre-seed capital for a smaller amount of equity, and different approaches to the way that mentorship or the programs are rolled out. And Thrill Mill, Bobby, the CEO and founder of the organization, initially it was just him. And him and the first couple of hires, they threw a bunch of different things against the wall. Some of them stuck, some of them didn't. There were a lot of changes throughout that entire timeline. And now, almost 5 years later, or towards the end of 2016, the organization had reached a point where it made sense to kind of evolve.
So if I'm right, what you're saying is it needed to become a sender because it wasn't just about, wouldn't it be fun to have a creative space for people who want to build? Now it was becoming legit business development from the ground out.
Absolutely. I think what Thrill Mill saw was, despite being an incubator at its core, and by definition, something that's focused on those companies and fledgling organizations within its doors, we found a lot of additional peripheral ways of adding value and bringing people together. And Thrival our Thrival Festival became, one of those means, helping to organize different hackathons, startup weekends, those kinds of things. And very soon, it was a recognition that Thrill Mill and then Ascender could really grow into being this kind of community hub or resource that individuals or organizations could utilize to fit whatever respective needs that they might have.
Well, your title, I saw, and I don't know if it is still the same from when you first gave me a business card, but it was Program Director. As Program Director, it makes sense. You want to come and you want to bring events in, you want to have people up on stage, and you always want to have a buzz. Mm-hmm. But you and I, 2 weeks ago, were sitting down with a young startup, and you were not planning events. You were sitting down and telling them sort of like how to shape their pitch. And, I was trying to lend a hand just with, some of the ways that they might think about how they can stay true to their pitch over an extended period. So you're advising startups as well?
Oh, absolutely. a good chunk of each day or every week is a matter of meeting with startups, whether they're incubatees or members or not. Just trying to connect needs with appropriate resources.
Okay.
And it sometimes comes the other way around. It's foundations and investors and other people who are like, hey, I'm interested in this, and I have a feeling that it's happening in Pittsburgh. Just love for you to point me in the right direction.
Right.
And there's a lot of that kind of reciprocal interest on each side. And we're just trying to facilitate those things, both with a physical space or with some of the event-oriented opportunities. For
it ends up with you wearing a lot of hats, and frankly, and I've referred to you in the past as the insomniac, right? Because I have no physical proof that you actually require sleep. I'll show up at 8 o'clock at an event at a university, and you're the speaker before me, and I have a laugh, right? And then it's like, later that night, I'll see a post, and it'll be on Instagram, and it'll be like, okay, well, here's Kenny Chen, addressing this room full of people about the inclusive innovation week that's coming up in a month, right? And it was like, okay, well, how did Kenny find time to talk about that when he was up at 7:30 and he was at the university? And I'm tired, man, and I'm not that much older than you. Anyway.
Yeah, some people have a clones theory, or guessing how many duplicates there are, whatnot.
You cover a lot of ground.
Well, yeah, I mean, Unit 4 is very pleased to be here right now.
Unit 4, congratulations on making it to the Pitchwerks podcast. Actually, it's even funnier. I didn't even tell you this. I sat down with the folks at Clean Robotics. Right?
Oh, great! Yeah,
they make TrashBot, and they've got a Kickstarter planned, and I went through about like a 3 or 4 week period where I was just going to try to find people that I could help for free that were actually adding something to the world, and they were on my list of great people. Eventually, we'll have them on here, maybe right before their Kickstarter.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But just somebody out of nowhere goes, "Do you know Kenny Chen?" I was like, "Of course that question came up." So let's talk about Thrival. This, no disrespect intended, doesn't quite add up for a lot of people. So yeah, everyone knows the Thrival Festival around here. It's a big deal. It's innovation and music. And we were talking about deal flow and seed rounds and failure and coaching and social good. And if you can, I'd like you to help me sort of connect the dots about how those two concepts fuse together.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right in the brand recognition. There's probably 10 or 100 times as many people who recognize the Thrival brand as they do now the parent organization, Ascender, to the point where we've had to start adding the Ascender logo to different Thrival assets.
That's what I would
do. To help connect the dots, though, perhaps it ends up confusing people or hopefully piquing interest. And for Thrival, a lot of people take a look at what it is now.
Yeah.
And that's where some of that does not compute stuff comes out, which is like, wait, so you're telling me that your team of 5 people in this economic development nonprofit puts together a music festival and like an innovation conference that runs for double your operating budget.
And there's thousands of people involved at one level or another, and thousands more that lie about having attended.
But
I was totally there.
In this case, Thrival is evidence of one of those concepts that was thrown at the wall early on.
Yeah.
And stuck.
Yeah.
And not only did it stick, but it grew a life of its own and started finding its way into the appropriate interests and resource and all of those kinds of things. Thrival back in 2013, the first year that it was done, it was essentially a few thought talks and a parking lot concert in the middle of Bakery Square. I think there were 3 acts. I think it was De La Soul, Frightened Rabbit, and one more band that I don't quite remember. There might have been 1,000 or 2,000 people that showed up for the thing as a whole, which is yeah, for Pittsburgh, like an event-loving city, that's about standard. And just year over year, the scope and attendance grew anywhere between like 40 to 70% or so, or doubling in reach. And so the programs just added on as well. And for these kinds of events, there is a kind of economy of scale.
Okay.
Where after you test the waters and establish a brand and have a sense of what the purpose of that event is, then in repeating it, there are far fewer wheels that need to be reinvented.
Yeah.
And the art and science of putting together different kinds of events, especially large-scale ones, it's not overly complex. It's just a matter of how many more...
I don't know. I think that's humility talking.
Okay.
How many people are you anticipating will show up at this year's Thrival? What are the dates, by the way? I meant to ask you.
Oh, sure. It's September 27th through the 30th.
How many people do you think show up?
Yeah, well, let's see. Last year we had about 16,000 show up over the course of the week, and so we're looking at a similar range this year. 16 to 20,000 would be great, but we're no longer trying. Attendance growth is no longer like a metric that we necessarily want to prioritize.
No, I actually ask out of a state of concern.
Okay, yeah.
I do, because especially in the current climate of like, if you didn't know you and you didn't know your goals and missions and whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. It would be easy to have people think big party equals dude bro culture, right? Mm-hmm. Equals that thing we've been reading about.
Or 2 years ago, Thrival Innovation, it was an entire 5 days. There was a hackathon that led into it. It was really just this marathon of an event.
Yeah.
And last year, 2016, we scaled it down to 3 days of innovation, 2 days of music. This year, we further condensed it to 2 days of innovation, though we are adding an international artificial intelligence pitch competition kind of thing to it before. But we'll send out more details about that. But we're trying not to get stuck in that trap of pursuing endless growth.
Right. You don't want to be Burning Man.
Unsustainable, yeah.
The goal maybe, though, of Thrival to attract attention to the brand? And understand, if this is secret sauce, you're more than welcome just to leave it alone. Or is it more along the lines of, it can be fun to be smart?
Huh. Because
it gives off both of those vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for Thrival, what you said earlier about drawing attention to the brand, that's not really a priority. I think if we were a for-profit company, a marketing or whatever kind of entity that was in it to like line our pockets or for investors, that might be a different case. But Thrival was still built out of the same mission that the Thrill Mill and now Ascender are, which is filling gaps and facilitating connectivity across, especially across planes where that doesn't typically exist. And so it's the innovation and music festival because we find that there are these circles or bubbles of tech entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers, investors, etc., that all play ball together on a regular basis. And then there's a fascinating and often complementary world of artists, musicians, creatives, and people who are just, expressing themselves in very interesting ways. And there are so many parallels, say, between design, UI, UX design, and what a performance artist might do.
So you're on the Pitchwerks podcast.
Sure.
And the word pitch works its way in there nice and upfront. It's not sneaky. So this is dealer's choice, however you like to play it. If you'd like to pitch me on the Thrival Festival, if you'd like to pitch me on Ascender, if you have a startup that you're working on that you want to pitch me on, anything it's totally up to you. I just want to hear how it is that you persuade people to see the world your way.
I don't think I ever pitch it in a formal way. It's only ever conversational.
Yeah.
But, you know, essentially, Ascender is a startup incubator and co-working space. And what that means is that we exist to support entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and a wide range of other businesses and organizations throughout the Pittsburgh region.
Here's what I want you to do.
Sure.
I want you to focus on the fact that you are trying to connect people and that you believe that that is good.
Mm-hmm.
I say Ascender is where people come to be connected to a community with purpose.
Oh, I need to write that down.
No, I just recorded it.
Oh, that's great. Ascender is a place where people come to connect to a community with a sense of purpose. Oh, wow. You know, we've been trying and iterating on all these various approaches to explaining what Ascender is. And that, without a doubt, is the most concise and perhaps clear one that I have heard so far.
I've been doing this for a minute.
No, 25 years.
It's a give take, right? You know, somewhere in there, a minute, 25 years.
What is it? I've been a salesperson, marketer, and consultant.
So everything with a grain of salt, and just understand that I did no copyright research before throwing this out there. It may require some tweaking and your mileage may vary, but I like the idea of basically just putting those high value words up front.
No, absolutely. I love it. And, you know, I'll look forward to further conversations as, you know, all of this evolves and we continue to hone that pitch, the message.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about it more with you anytime you want to. You know, you guys, again, you do quite a bit to make sure that people have a community that they're connected to. You know, if I can do that for you, that'd be great. Kenny, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Sure. The best way is email kenny@ascenderpgh.com. That's ASCENDERPGH.com. Or follow me on Twitter at KNNYCHN, my name without the vowels, 7 letters.
Kenny, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate your insight and all the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's it. We're at about half an hour, and as you know, I try to make sure that these fit pretty nicely into your commute, but if you've got questions, problems, concerns, remember, always here for you. Hit us up on the social channels. Just use Pitchwerks. Put the E in works, PITCHWERKS, and that also goes for the website URL. Hit us up. Tell us what you're thinking. I don't know. You have something you want to hear about. You have a specific problem that you'd like to know how we would go about tackling. I'm open to anything. This is your show, and I'm basically just trying to make sure that it's useful. So do that. Seek us out. Let us know what's on your mind. In the meantime, we'll be making another episode of this fine program, and we hope you'll tune in for that in about 7 days. Take care of yourself in the meantime.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. PITCHWERKS.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, PITCHWERKS.